Good evening. Continue with Unit 4, Lesson 10. Generate equivalent fractions using larger units. All right, I know I've said this before, but when we talk about equivalent versus simplifying fractions, equivalent fractions, you can use multiplication or division. For example, like 1/5. You can multiply the top and the bottom by 2 to get 2/10. So if you started off with just 2/10, you could then divide the top and the bottom by 2 to get the equivalent fraction of 1/5. But what happens if the rules change and you are asked to simplify a fraction? It also means an equivalent fraction. But when you're talking about simplifying, you can only use division. You cannot use multiplication. So the words change. You are finding the equivalent fraction when you are dividing, but when they say the word simplifying, that doesn't mean to multiply, it means to divide. So if you get a fraction that says 4/8 as an answer in a problem, and in the rules it said, or the directions it says to simplify, you couldn't leave 4/8 as your answer. You would have to divide. And you would divide always by the greatest number that you could divide by. And in this case, it would be 4. 2 would work, but it wouldn't be the biggest number that you could divide by. So the numerator would become 1, and the denominator would become 2. So it's a half. 4/8 can be simplified to a half. It also is an equivalent fraction. 4/8 and a half are equivalent, but in this situation, they are being simplified. Okay, in this area model, you have 3/6. Now, what could you do with 3/6 to find an equivalent fraction? Well, if you notice, if we just split this right in half, what would this become? This would be considered a half. So we could divide the top and the bottom by 3, and we would get the numerator of 1 and the denominator of 2. So 3/6 and a half are equivalent. And by looking at this picture area model, you can see that 3/6 is equal to a half. The next one, we've got 4/8. And we want to show how this is also equal to a half. If we cut it in half, we know that it's equal to 1/2 just by using that area model. But how can we do that? Well, we could have used division. So we have 4/8, and we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 4, because whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. Whatever we do to the top, we have to do to the bottom. And when we get that, we get 1 in the numerator and 2 in the denominator. So 4/8 is equivalent to a half. All right, the next example, we have a fraction. This represents 2/6. And I want to show you that it's also equal to 1/3. So 2/6 is equivalent to 1/3. And how could we show that? By using division. And what number we can divide the top and the bottom by would be 2. And when we divide by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, the numerator. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's 1/3. So 2/6 is equal to 1/3, and we did this by using division and an area model. Next example where we have here is 4/6. And we want to show that this section right here is 2/3. So we're trying to show that 4/6 is equivalent to 2/3. And we did that by using the area model. But we can also do is by using division. What can we divide the top and the bottom by? Well, it would be 2. because we cut this up into 2 rows. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 4/6 and 2/3 are equivalent fractions. In our next one, we've got a fraction of 9/12. And we want to show you that just if we cut this one up right here, one of those sections, that would be equal to 3/4. Can we show that using division? Well, yes, we can, because we can divide the top and the bottom by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So 9/12 and 3/4 are equivalent fractions. Okay, the next one. This area model is showing 6/10. And if we cut this 6/10 into this row right here, we would show you that this is equal to 3/5. And how did we get that? Well, we used the area model, but we can also use it by division. Whatever I do to the top, I have to do the bottom. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. And what can we use? We can divide by 2, because this is showing you 2 sections, 2 equal sections. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 6/10 is equivalent to 3/5. All right, give me an equivalent fraction of 6/12. It's equal to 6/12. Well, we're going to use our good old division, and I'll use 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 6/12 and 3/6 are equivalent. Guys, you could also do this. You could divide the top and the bottom by the greatest number, and that would show me simplifying. And I'm going to divide by 6. So the numerator becomes 1, and the denominator becomes 2. So 6/12, 3/6, and 1/2, guys, they are all equivalent fractions. And in this case, this section right here, that is how you would simplify, because we use the largest number to divide the numerator and the denominator. When you know it will never work, but you keep going back to each other. Isn't that just the cutest picture ever? So sweet. Simplify 4/8. Remember, use the greatest number to divide by when you're simplifying. So 4/8 can get simplified to what? Bring in your work tomorrow. Simplify 6/8 using the greatest number possible. Whatever you do to the bottom, you gotta do the top. Want to see your work tomorrow. I did the math. We can't afford the cat. Adorable. Guys, we'll practice this more tomorrow. Have a wonderful night.